Today, I'm joined by three incredible nonprofit practitioners and experts who will join me on the stage and introduce themselves shortly. But first, I would like to tell you a little bit more about AI for Good, why we do this work at Amazon Web Services, and why it's so critical today. So again, I'm Sandra, and I lead the AI for Good work at Amazon Web Services Social Responsibility and Impact Team, which is a very long name, SRI for short, and with over a decade of experience applying artificial intelligence in both commercial and non-commercial purposes. It has always been my dream to apply my skill set, which is artificial intelligence, as a technologist for the betterment of society and the planet. So this role is very personal to me, this work is very personal to me, and I am extremely, extremely happy to be doing this work alongside my brilliant colleagues at Amazon Web Services and collaborators and partners that you will hear from today. By now, everyone knows that artificial intelligence will change the world and definitely changes the way we look at new data, the way we take insights from that data, and the ways we can improve people's lives. But how do we ensure that this AI rising tide lifts all boats, not just the most connected or the most resourced ones? The challenges we face in the world today are both complex and urgent. At AWS, we're optimistic about the future, and we know that no single company, no single industry, no single country can solve those challenges alone. That's why we collaborate, and collaboration is really at the heart of everything we do. We work with mission-driven organizations, whether those are nonprofits, social enterprises, mission-driven startups, or local governments, to bring the best of artificial intelligence and machine learning, not just Gen AI that everyone is talking about. Let's not forget about traditional AI and machine learning, good old machine learning, to solve social problems. So what's the plan for today? Let's see. I will have each of my guest speakers and each of those organizations come up on stage and tell you more about their organization, their mission, and their AI solutions that they're building. And then we will jointly sit down and have a deeper, dive deeper into the discussion and into the AI solutions they have built. So here are the amazing nonprofit experts and practitioners I've been telling you about from Tech to Rescue, Mercy Corps, and ACAPS. And once again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for choosing this session. I know it's a Monday morning session. Now, I would like to invite the first guest speaker on stage. Let's hear it from him. And by the way, I heard those amazing stories probably more than a dozen of times, and each time I hear them, they don't stop to amaze me. So I hope you will also be amazed, just like I am. Now I would like to invite on stage the CEO of Tech to Rescue, Jacek Siatkowski. Let's give him a round of applause. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Oh, hey everyone, thank you, Sandra. At the beginning, I want to invite you for a travel with my time machine. So we go back in time to a period which is not the most fantastic in your life, I'm sorry for that, but you have to do it to picture a story, and it's April 2020. COVID pandemic just started, you're locked out in your house, you work isolated, outside your window there is some mystical flu that no one knows what it actually is, and you're worried. You're worried about yourself, your family, your neighborhood, your country. And you're a person who has wonderful skills, coding superpowers. You build several solutions in your life that are used by hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions. So in theory, your beating heart says, let's build something that will help people out there. But what to build? None of us is an epidemiologist, maybe some of you, but I'm not. So it's not easy to think of the solution. Would you build a solution that would trace the COVID pandemic like roots to the person who infected the first human being? We don't know. I was in the same place back then, in 2020, and I am from Poland. And together with a couple of tech entrepreneurs from Poland, we thought that we should do something about it. And the best idea we had was, let's donate our stuff to someone that knows what to build. So we wrote a short LinkedIn manifesto that will do it. And the manifesto went viral right away. In 2 weeks, 150 companies from Poland joined us, willing to deploy hundreds of software developers to build something that is needed. In 2 months, we built several different solutions. For example, a tool that was helping hospitals crowdsource medical equipment that was needed in crisis. The solutions helped, and this is our estimation, around 500,000 people. So the simple idea of building something for someone that knows what to do worked. So we call this idea Tech to the Rescue, technology helping people that rescue people and planet. And we deployed this idea for war in Ukraine, for earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, for supporting factory farmed animals all around the world, for supporting women in Nicaragua to help avoid cervical cancer, and many more. 4 years later, Tech to the Rescue is 1,800 tech companies strong. We're working in 60 countries, and every single day we build solutions for nonprofits with tech companies that are able to provide pro bono services for them. This is us. And we work with nonprofits because nonprofits know what to build. And by the way, they're amazing to work with. They're entrepreneurial, they understand social problems, they're excellent to collaborate with, and they know what to build. But there's a problem. They're really overstretched and under-resourced. I have a friend who works in nonprofits for the last 15 years, and she once told me that sometimes she imagined herself as a very thin layer of butter on her sandwich. Because every single day she has to do more than she actually can. So AI could change the game. AI is something that could help nonprofits automate processes, make better decisions, even reinvent programs with AI in heart. And we've already seen cases of nonprofits driving costs down by 30% by deploying AI wisely. And it's not crazy to think that some nonprofits could drive the cost down by 90%. But unfortunately, there are very few nonprofits that can afford hiring AI developers. Almost none of them. This is why, at the beginning of this year, together with AWS and Google.org, we started AI for Changemakers program. It's a program designed to support 100 outstanding organizations out there with, that's our hope, everything they need to build AI solutions. So they will have access, 2-year access, to world-class designers that would help them identify AI use cases and build AI strategy. They will have access to hundreds of companies that are ready to build AI solutions for them. They will have access to AWS credits, to mentors, to potential funding opportunities, basically to everything that is not making the question like, can we build? It's rather what we should build and how. The program is already there. We worked with 40 organizations from disaster management and climate cohort, and some solutions are already being built. So today we want to invite you for a story of people who actually build within the program with amazing tech companies that provide their hearts, time, and resources to help them transform humanitarian aid with AI. We want to invite you for 2 stories, starting from one and only Mercy Corps and Alicia Morrison, to help you see what can happen if you deploy your time and talent for nonprofit work. Alicia, over to you, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Alicia Morrison. I'm the Interim Senior Director for Technology for Development at Mercy Corps. Mercy Corps is a global humanitarian nonprofit organization, and our goal is to help people build secure, just, and productive communities by alleviating poverty, suffering, and oppression. We work across numerous sectors in our 4 outcome areas, which are water security, food security, economic opportunity, and peace and good governance. So we have hundreds of programs in more than 40 countries worldwide, and we are more than 6,000 strong. Thanks to our commitment to localization, the vast majority of those folks are from the areas in which they live and work. And they work very hard. We have programs that range from agriculture to multi-purpose cash assistance to maternal health to education to social protection and pretty much anything else you can imagine in the humanitarian sphere. So we're a very large and diverse nonprofit organization. So really, how is it that we could be using AI? AI makes a lot of promises, right? And for the humanitarian sector, it promises that it's going to make us more efficient and that it's going to help us make more effective decisions, that it's somehow going to maximize the way in which we deliver our very scant resources to improve better humanitarian outcomes in all those programs that I just talked about. And it promises that it can do this kind of across the board. But the humanitarian sector really has a fundamental problem when it comes to AI. And that is that it's just not that easy, right? A humanitarian organization like Mercy Corps is not full of AI experts. It is full of humanitarian experts. So we cannot ask our colleagues to suddenly become experts on new technologies, and especially at the speed at which those technologies are evolving. So we have an extremely limited number of people at Mercy Corps who understand AI and its potential for the type of work that we do. On top of that, everyone knows AI is expensive. In order to build, deploy, maintain any technical tool, it costs money. And it's even more expensive when you're putting AI in on top of that. But over the last several years, the funding for the humanitarian sector has contracted, and it continues to. In July, the UN Global Humanitarian Overview is published, and since 2023 alone, we've experienced a global contraction by about 11% for funding for humanitarian aid. And we do expect that trend to continue over the next several years. So this means organizations like Mercy Corps struggle to bolster what are already extremely lean technical and data science teams. And in fact, for our global staff of 6,000, our headquarters has a data science team of 2. I'm one of them. So when you're short on people who sort of know the work and you're in a big organization, what tends to happen is that work gets siloed, right? Because people find it difficult to talk the technical details of the work that they're doing. So our program staff are focused on programs and that impact and don't always have time to look to the left and right and say, hey, we used data science or we used AI or we used ML in this really cool and interesting way. Program in the next country over, maybe you should take a look at that. It happens sometimes, but not as often as you would hope. People are busy, crises are complex, they take a lot of time and energy. So the real question is, how do we break down those silos and help people better understand where these technologies fit into humanitarian work? And that's the goal of our solution. The AI Methods Matcher is really to enable humanitarian personnel to explore the ways in which their peers and colleagues have already experimented and successfully used analytical tools to benefit their programs. So raise your hand if you've ever gone down a Google rabbit hole or the search engine of your choice, right? Pretty much everybody. And what happens is we Google something and we say, oh, like, what is this thing? And then we're like, that's interesting. And we Google that. And then we click on that. And then we Google that again. And we're going down this rabbit hole. 3 hours later, you know the chemical composition of whale baleen or something insane that you had no idea you even cared about 3 hours ago. And that's really what the goal of this tool is. We want our colleagues to become AI curious, to start generating their own creative power around the ways that AI, ML, analytics, geospatial tools can really support their work. Mercy Corps is an organization committed to evidence and innovation. So in 2020, or since 2020, we've been experimenting with all of those tools. And we have a lot of examples of ways in which those tools can best support our program teams. So really the goal is for teams to cross-pollinate ideas and methods. People might ask questions like, well, how can I use AIML in agricultural programming? Seems like a reasonable question to ask if you do agricultural programming. And what they'll get back out of this tool is a summary of reports we've done in places like Sudan, where we used geospatial analytics and machine learning to evaluate the impact of the conflict on agricultural production and also to forecast that into the future. And then they might do a deep dive into random things like, what is a normalized difference vegetation index? Raise your hand if you know what that is. You probably don't, right? But then maybe you'd get a definition out of this and you'd understand that that's a measure that you can use through remote sensing to sort of evaluate the health of cropland from the past and current sort of satellite imagery. So this rabbit hole of self-discovery, we think, is really where the best ideas are going to come from. When the rubber meets the road, when our colleagues are the ones who actually experience the inefficiencies on the ground, they can imagine the ways in which their lives could be easier. And we want to take those ideas and link them to methods and tools and practices that will support them directly. And really to do that without the need for hours of our very small data science team, right? So that we can spend our time really building and working with our teams instead of just explaining to them how a team next door did something cool with AI. They can kind of discover that for themselves and come to us with ideas rather than trying to pull the ideas out of us. So really, that's why we partnered with Cloudera to build the AI Methods Matcher, which is a chatbot that serves these curated reports and other types of resources so that people can better understand the value that these technologies bring to humanitarian aid. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Yevhen to talk about their solution.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for coming for our session. My name is Yevhen Barshevsky, and I'm Data Solutions Team Lead at ACAPS. So maybe a few words about ACAPS, because I'm sure many of you are familiar with Mercy Corps, but we ACAPS maybe less familiar with ACAPS and our mission. So at ACAPS, our motto is see the crisis, change the outcome. And we are independent information service provider in this sector. So we don't distribute the aid. We are not operational actor, but we inform how the aid is distributed. And our data and analysis sort of shape what are the priority areas for many operational actors in the humanitarian sector, as well as key institutional donors who frequently use our data to make different decisions, to support their decision making. And basically, we have two sets of products that we inform our stakeholders. One is the data sets, and another one is ad hoc analytics per specific crisis context. And we are located in Geneva. Our HQ is in Geneva. However, we have multiple offices abroad with a dense network of information analysts who monitor crises almost 24/7 to inform our stakeholders. And as of this moment, as I'm speaking, our data is used by more than 2,000 organizations, and we cover more than 100+ crises on a daily basis. So with that said, now you have this mission, it's a very ambitious mission. You could see that our first challenge with that is, how do we stay abreast with the humanitarian crisis development? So if you look at the day of life of our analysts, of course, we are a nonprofit, so we can't allow ourselves to hire, a team of 200 analysts per crisis. So we have to compromise. So we have an analyst who can monitor more than 10 countries, more than, 15 crises per those 10 countries, and the crises are of different contexts, of different shape, of different needs. Some are natural hazards. Others are conflicts, so the outcomes of the crisis and the needs are different. And you can imagine a vast magnitude of sources that the analyst has to monitor on a daily basis. So we discovered through the internal interviews that at least 80% of time of our staff is actually spent on just finding the information. So that was the starting point of our sort of solutions that we want to talk to you about today, which is called Solutions Platform for Humanitarian Information Analysis, or SOPHIA shortly. And what SOPHIA is, it's a SaaS product that allows analytical staff to monitor crises in real time. So it uses a couple of AWS technologies that allows us to, look at dozens of sources that are in different languages. For example, if you look at Ethiopia, you will know that there are 80 local dialects, but there are at least 4 major languages that the different communities speak. And the most important information is actually there in those local communities, in those social media. They are sharing those needs there, so we need to understand that. And of course, our analysts don't know 80 languages or whatever. So we have to provide them information in the language that they speak. And this is what SOPHIA is doing. So basically, SOPHIA tries to prioritize signal from the noise in the vast majority of the sources that is monitored on a daily basis. It tries to translate information from those sources to the languages that are accessible to our analysts. And also it tries to identify an important patterns on what we call humanitarian themes in those documents, because sometimes we also deal with very big documents, like very dense PDFs. And for example, some of our staff members might spend 35% of their time to read the documents in the first place. So this is what SOPHIA is. And we will be happy to share the more details on the technology that we use in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Join us here. Thank you very much. And now, as promised, I will moderate a discussion and ask you a couple of questions. It's really amazing, those solutions that you have, both of you have built. For the techies out there in the audience, I was wondering, maybe Alicia, let's start with you. I was wondering if you can give us a little bit more of what's under the hood and walk us through your matcher and your solution architecture.
Sure. So we partnered with Cloudera to build the AI methods matcher, or AIMM. And the way that it works effectively is that once the chatbot server receives a query from one of our users, it uses a retrieval augmented generation strategy to conduct a semantic similarity search on our vector database, which in our case we selected Milvis. And we have curated an S3 bucket full of sort of all of these resources, the internal reports and research and content, where we've sort of dropped in all these resources. And the Cloudera data platform sort of prepares that data, it chunks and ingests it. And uniquely, we're also chunking and ingesting Jupyter notebooks, which represent sort of best practices for different ways to do analytics for specific humanitarian problems. And that was a very specific problem that the Cloudera engineer had to solve, is how to really kind of like draw information out of those Jupyter notebooks. But once they're chunked and ingested into Milvis, the tool then uses the results of that semantic similarity search to augment the prompt, along with any sort of like chat history, just like you would expect kind of a chatbot to do. And it passes that to the Cloudera AI inference service, which hosts our productionized sort of model endpoint. And in our case, we're using the Mistral 7B instruct model. And really, the Cloudera AI inference service, its purpose is to sort of enable us to productionize a solution a lot more quickly than you would otherwise. When it's coupled with the Cloudera AI registry, it really sort of like gives us the ability to be more experimental with our modeling. And so when this is launched on the Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service, really what it does is gives us a very unique auto-scaling capability, which allows us to host multiple versions of the model, scale up GPU instances when we need to, which also very notably helps us reduce cost because we don't have to maintain a certain level of GPU throughout the entire life cycle of the tool. And it even allows for things like if you have multiple versions of a model or maybe 2 different models, you can do sort of A/B testing of different models through that inference service as well. So once you've sort of got the information into the model, we have a Flask application and a front end built on Angular. And so when a user asks questions like, hey, what are we doing with data science at Mercy Corps? It's going to serve up those reports that are relevant to that question. So for that particular question, they might get things back like, a report on forecasting the price of key commodities in local markets in Lebanon, or how to leverage machine learning approaches to predicting energy demand on mini grids in Uganda, or how to use satellite imagery to analyze the impact of conflict on agriculture, and so forth. So that's really sort of how the architecture flows. I just want to give a big shout out to our partner, Cloudera, and TTTR for connecting us with them, and also Rob on Cloudera and Aaron on my team, who did almost all the technical heavy lifting here. And I just get to be here and talk to you about it. So.
Thanks, Alicia. And by the way, Cloudera's team is also here at reInvent. I think they've got a stand.
We're going to give a demo at the Cloudera booth in the expo at 3 p.m. tomorrow, if you want to come by.
So if you're interested in actually seeing this solution in action, go meet Alicia there and Cloudera's team.
Absolutely.
Yevhen, same question to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it works? What are you inputting? What are you getting out? And for a layperson, let us know how the architecture works.
Okay. So for SOPHIA, you see the slide. Okay, great. So for SOPHIA, being a nonprofit, we always try to maximize the value for the money invested. So that's why we chose to build on the serverless architecture. And for those of you folks who don't know, the serverless is basically allow you to trigger the different events like based on scenarios. So for example, our scenario is new documents are available for a specific set of curated sources. So once those documents are available, we scrape them using the AWS Lambda technology. And there we have a set of lambdas that are working in tandem, basically to do a couple of useful things for SOPHIA. So one of that will be the translation of the documents. So right now, SOPHIA supports 70+ languages from the box. And we are thinking of adding more languages as we continue to develop our product. So first, we translate the documents, and then we are using AWS SageMaker to sort of go into the document and try to classify the important pieces of information to highlight those information for our analytical stuff. And we use the S3 buckets to store all those huge PDFs or text pieces that we collect online. And another piece of work that was purely experimental for this version of SOPHIA, but now partnering with Tech to the Rescue and Allo IT partner that we would like to scale up, was this Gen AI module that we incorporated at the first stage. So the way this Gen AI feature works is basically you have your documents and you have the analyst who wants to find information really quickly using the prompts like the way we do these days with ChatGPT. So on top of those documents, we built an interface that allows analysts to take a sample of specific documents. Like, for example, it could be Yemen for a specific topic like wash, shelter, or nutrition issue and the like, and then ask a set of questions. And then what SOPHIA does, it basically retrieves those information using the RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and gives you back the responses in a nice form, and also where you can find those responses in the document itself. And of course, we use AWS Amplify because SOPHIA is a SaaS product, so we need to give users a way to interact with SOPHIA, and this is where we build our front end. And similar to Alicia, we will be happy to share how, give access to SOPHIA if you would like to. We don't have a booth with Cloudera, but we have the URL, and I'll be happy to share the access and to demo the product that we built after this session. Thank you.
Thanks, Yevhen. So the common theme is RAG among those two solutions. Jacek, I would like to now turn it over to you. Because you mentioned that nonprofits and social enterprises should not be left behind, and I agree with you. However, it's really concerning that only less than 1% of the budget is going, of the AI budget, is going towards social impact solutions. I would like to ask you, and Alicia and Yevhen later on as well, about the barriers to AI adoption among the social sector. You've mentioned talent shortages. Have you seen any other barriers while running the AI for Changemakers program?
Yeah, I would say those two people, amazing people who build those like mind-blowing solutions, are the exception. And a typical nonprofit that you would find out there. And I'm talking not about like very typical nonprofit which is serving local community, but about someone, the organization that has solved the social problem on a small scale and has the potential to scale it regionally, nationally, or maybe globally. A typical nonprofit of such kind would have like 2-3 IT people at the team, but they mostly serve organization as internal IT agencies, so building websites, solving problems, connecting things. So they don't really have time and space to innovate. It's a huge problem because without having time to innovate, you won't build solid data sets, you won't be able to build prototypes, you won't be able to test the prototypes with real users. And in the nonprofit space, it's really important to make sure that those AI-based solutions won't harm people. And we can fully control generative AI, for example. So the problems are vast, and it's crucial to enable organizations to even start testing them, right? Building prototypes. The big problem of the big root cause of the problem is that there's limited funding for AI in the nonprofit space. And to actually get funding, you need to present a working prototype that makes sense. So I believe that among all of those problems and challenges that are there, the crucial one is having an access to people that could help you prototype and prove that your idea makes sense. This is why it's so important that companies like Cloudera or Alio IT join nonprofits like ACAPS and Mercy Corps and help them build, prove, and then get funding for anything that could help scale the solution to the large community.
So when it comes to blockers and barriers, what I'm hearing is talent shortages. You also mentioned cost. What are the other barriers or blockers, Alicia, that you see?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything Jasek's laid out. Capacity is a huge, huge blocker. Is we simply don't have the people or the money to hire them. But more fundamentally, I think a lot of nonprofit organizations have also historically underinvested in a lot of their data systems. And so we're really not prepared to then build AI on top of them. So you're asking sort of these legacy systems, often they're on-prem and maintained by somebody with sort of ancient skill sets. Now we're saying hey, make that available to our brand new generative AI chatbot. And it's not just flipping a switch, right? And so I think that the other problem that comes with that is a lot of our technology partners are really excited to build generative AI chatbots, but what I need is for you to come and fix my fundamental enterprise level systems so that then I can look at how I do that in a sustainable and sort of a maintainable way. Because I don't think that most nonprofit organizations are really prepared for that wave, right? And as Jasek pointed out, you have to kind of prove out a concept before somebody will buy off on it. And I can't really prove out a concept unless I have the system that supports that experimentation. And I don't even have that at the moment. So I think fundamentally we have to really get down to basics and say, thank you for investing in the high-powered and sexy-looking technology stuff. Can you also help me with these things that maybe aren't so cool and don't make such a good story, but are going to fundamentally be a game changer for organizations that are trying to leverage and that can really benefit from these AI tools and services?
So stop chasing the new shiny toy, shiny tool, because otherwise it's going to, and I think I'm going to quote you, Alicia, from one of the podcasts, is going to end up in the land of abandoned projects.
The land, yeah. We've got one of those at Mercy Corps for sure.
Is it a whole island?
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yevhen, besides the cost, talent shortages, the last mile implementation challenges that Alicia has mentioned, data, because there is no AI without data, let's say it out loud. What are the other challenges that you see? I don't think the data is the problem because what you do is collect data, right?
Yeah, so data is probably we are outlier when it comes to AI project implementation because, normally folks are talking about like, where do I take my data? I need data at scale. So in our case, we are a data provider, right? So we have the data, and for SOPHIA, the data was not, at this moment, not a challenge. Maybe in the future it will, as we, iterate and build new product. But I think what we noticed as ACAPS and what we try to really not to, repeat ourselves in what is happening in the humanitarian sector frequently is that people got excited about the technology, about AI, and Alicia just mentioned like people got excited about chatbots these days. But then at the end of the day, it comes down to the use cases and to the actual, how does this technology will solve the problem? And we saw that many organizations try to chase technology and they fall into the trap of solution in search of problems. When you build your solution and then you try to fit solution to the problem that might or might not exist. And this is what we try to omit at ACAPS when we were building SOPHIA. We actually, AI itself and in the implementation, like the development process, okay, so it was a couple of months, but it was almost up to 1 year to do the discovery phase because we have to, go to the analysts. We did a lot of desk research. So we identified a user profiles. We try to understand like how does the solution will make the day of the analyst, better and not create extra work. Because even a simple thing like, so are you looking at what's the SOPHIA recommendation layer? Is it layer of documents? Is it layer within the document? How not we create a situation where the analyst will actually spend even more time now using the shiny AI. So this is what we try really to omit, and that's why we really invested upfront. But we know that many organizations are maybe are learning how to do this. So that's why we're happy to share our experience on this.
So an interesting thing that you're saying is that you are user-centric and you actually spend the time and invested in listening to your users and listening to people who ultimately this solution is going to serve. And the second thing that you said that is very interesting is about this notion of when you've got a hammer, in this case AI is the hammer, you as a technologist usually start looking for the nails, and it shouldn't be like this, right? Very interesting. Thank you so much, Yevhen. Alicia, now a little bit more of a philosophical question. With AI and the AI hype at the moment, do we imagine a time when we have arrived? Or are we always going to be, in the middle, in the midst of the process with AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just because we're nonprofit organizations doesn't make us immune to the cycles of how technology works. But most technologies, most useful technologies, right, like settle into a space where, as you say, they kind of arrive. And I think, in the humanitarian space, I think a lot of people's conception is that we are going into countries and we are like handing people bags of rice, right? But that's actually not like really true. It may have been years and years ago, but we did a bunch of research and we said, that's a bad idea. You disrupt local markets and you cause problems. And so that only really happens in very limited circumstances, sort of direct disaster relief kinds of things. And so we moved to a system where we would issue vouchers, and there'd be kind of an exchange with local vendors, and you have a voucher and you hand that to a beneficiary, and then the beneficiary can exchange that voucher for the bag of rice. And this sort of improves the relationship between humanitarian aid and the markets. And so that's a form of adopting a new technology, right? Later, there's a whole bunch more sort of like iterations of this, and we discovered that, in fact, the best thing to do is to just give people cash. Because people will spend that cash on their most immediate needs, and oftentimes that's food, shelter, medicine, but whatever it is, if you just give people cash, they'll spend it on what they need. And that is the most efficient way to deliver humanitarian aid, is multi-purpose cash assistance in most cases. And then that transformed even further, right? Like now we have all these places where they've kind of like skipped institutional banking, and so they all do everything on digital banking portfolios and so forth. So we actually just deliver digital cash to people, right? We're not handing like stacks of money to people. We are they're getting it on their cell phone, right? And then they have the cash that they can then go out and spend on their local economy. And so I think that's an example of sort of one way that thinking around that type of development and those new technologies really over time adapt. And that took probably decades. I don't know, I haven't been around that long. But probably decades, right? And I think likewise what we're going to do is we're going to start to identify those places where we say, here's the way that AI is beneficial, and here's the way where it's actually disrupting and causing problems, right? Disrupting in a bad way, not necessarily in a good way, right? But we're going to start to pick out those pieces and to find these use cases where it is providing a very tangible benefit that we can measure, and we're going to start seeing that to get adopted and to get scaled. But it's going to happen at a pace that's slower because we simply don't have the money to scale it as quickly as you would in the private sector, right? So, but I do think that there's no reason why humanitarian organizations, why nonprofits in particular, won't kind of still take that systematic approach. Even if it goes a bit more slowly than you would expect it to, there will be a time where useful ways of using AI will be very commonplace amongst humanitarian organizations.
Looking forward to this time. Thank you, Alicia. Yevhen, I would like now to turn it over to you because you and Alicia and many other nonprofits and social enterprises within AI for Changemakers program, some of them in the audience today as well, are the trailblazers, right? Are the ones on the front lines of AI innovation. What advice would you give to those nonprofits or those CTOs who want to be in your place, in your shoes, and want to be best prepared for the next 6 months of the AI revolution? What should they do?
Yeah, great question. I guess the first what comes to my mind is what I call demystify AI. So if you visit our office in Geneva and you ask 3 colleagues of mine, what is AI? You'll probably get 3 different answers, right?
Not just your office.
Not just my office. Okay. I actually was told a funny story. So when we have a new data scientist arrive in the team, like one of the colleagues came and said, okay, great, finally someone will fix my printer. So, so you understand, right? So we're talking about Gen AI, all those kind of super high skill capabilities, but then like, first of all, like, you need to understand what the technology is, what's the advantages and limitations of technology. And I think that the work that Alicia mentioned is actually a great example of how you can use technology to demystify technology. The second point, I think, as a CTO or as a tech leader, you need to understand the niche and what technology will actually solve your use cases. So for example, in our case, when I showed the SOPHIA, the actual value is delivered by what people now call like old-fashioned AI, old-fashioned machine learning. You know, nobody already used machine learning quite a lot. The machine learning was a buzzword 5 years back. Nowadays it's Gen AI. But in our case, it's actually the machine learning is what delivered the most of the value, and we use it in two sort of angles. One angle is to provide recommendation to the analyst on the documents that they should focus on first and foremost. And the second one is like a forecasting, because one of the other projects that is not part of SOPHIA for the moment is we try to keep the humanitarian community informed on the risks. So risk is a sort of like anticipatory action kind of thing that you need to be aware of. So let's say as an operational actor, I want to know if in this country there is a high risk, I don't know, of IDP movement, right? So as an operational actor that works with IDPs, you might be interested in to know about this risk as early as possible. So you have all the systems in place to address that risk. So this is the, like, again, this is all standard machine learning forecasting models, like no Gen AI. But okay, let's come back to the Gen AI because that's the buzzword of the day. The last use case that we actually identified was how we can use the agents to help to challenge our analysis, right? Because as you can think about, like, again, we have a team of analysts, they are experts, but we will really benefit from this critical, what we call a critical critics. So sort of like an agent that can go and challenge the analytical process and make us better, make our products better at the end. So I guess those 2 things I will mention.
Thank you very much, Yevhen. Alicia, 6 months from now, what do I do to put myself in the best position?
It's a great question. No, I mean, I think sort of as Zhenya was saying, really it's about identifying where the benefit for your organization is going to be and spending some of that time up front, really identifying your specific use cases. I spend a lot of time talking people down from chatbots because the vast majority of our data science portfolio is actually sort of geospatial analytics and remote sensing. It is not generative AI, and I don't envision a world where we will really be using generative AI at scale for program purposes, right? I think our sort of the most bang for our buck will be in geospatial technologies and sort of traditional machine learning, as Zhenya mentioned. So I think really what it boils down to, if you want to be prepared for the next 6 months, as they say, is look back at your last 6 months. Mm-hmm. Where are your pain points? What are the things that you can be doing to address those pain points and create sustainable solutions, as opposed to trying to look forward and catch a wave, which ultimately I think is a losing battle when you're so constrained on the budget and talent side, as we've talked about. So yeah, look a little bit backwards before you look forwards.
Or come and talk to Alicia and Yevgen, and they're going to tell you what they did in the past.
Yeah, but I think that's what's going to inform the reality of your future as an organization is where are my pain points, how can I address those, and what sort of proven technologies exist so that we can make effective, maintainable investments instead of sort of like always trying to catch the wave. And I'll sort of reserve comment that like, oh, so yes, be innovative, try new things, but understand that, you know, especially as a nonprofit, you're going to have to make choices. And in my opinion, the better choices are to make sustainable choices for the long run.
Those are some great pieces of advice. Thank you so much, both. Jacek, in this world with AI having a leveling effect, I'm going to ask you a kind of another philosophical question. Do you think that the voices that are louder, the people who shout louder, the communities who are wealthier will have their problems solved with artificial intelligence quicker than those who are more impoverished or quieter? What's your take on that?
It's kind of the question that rips my heart apart every single day. And I think I'm both pessimistic and optimistic about it. On the pessimistic side, like in my head, AI is just a multiplier to anything that is happening in the world. And thanks to this amazing technology that, you know, develops every single day, we can do things much more effectively, but it will amplify every failure of how we design civilization accordingly. And I'm pessimistic about it. I think you know, people who are in trouble will gain less value than those that are not in trouble. And I'm both optimistic about it because I build tech to the rescue, and I'm very lucky to be able to do it every single day of my life right now. And I see there are so many people that want to combat this. And, you know, like today, my heart is singing, seeing those guys, and also those guys who happen to build those solutions. It's amazing, and I think, you know, we should do as much as possible to level the effects, and there's no other way than to build.
Alicia, what do you think about this AI notion of AI being a multiplier? Will it widen the gap or bridge it?
I mean, I think just like anything else, there are, as Jacek said, people who will benefit more and people who will benefit less. And I think what brings a lot of us together in this room is that we have an idea that we would like to try to maximize the benefit for people who usually benefit less. And I think that, you know, maybe for those of you in this room who are more working for tech companies as opposed to nonprofits, this is sort of like a little bit of a call for action, a plea. But seek out companies or organizations like Tech to the Rescue and see where you can put your resources. Again, one of the fundamental problems is capacity for nonprofit organizations that are out there doing good. Can you lend some capacity to us? Because you have a profitable model for your own product. Is there something you can do to sort of put AI for good out there? And I think really like the more that private organizations or private companies are willing to kind of do what companies are doing for us right now and help us build these solutions and help us find pathways to sustainability. If you can create a buffer for innovation where we can try things without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on trying something just to be innovative, if you can help provide some of that cushion, that soft landing for nonprofit organizations, please do it. Because that's the way that we're going to sort of move things forward for the folks that normally don't benefit as much from new technology, I think.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And that's why we funded at AWS AI for Changemakers. That's why we believe in all of you building those AI for good solutions. My heart is really, happy seeing those solutions being built, you innovating. And I thank you all for that, to bridge this gap. I have one last quick question, 1 to sentence max for all of you, each of you. Is there anything out there that you're particularly excited for in the AI space? And I'm sure it's not going to be generative AI, because from everything that you've said here.
Yeah, let me start. I guess it's less of excitement, it's more like amusement. So I'm really amused how Gen AI becomes a new normal thing. So if you look back in 2 years, when the first models were coming, people were talking about Terminators and Doomsdays. And now if you have a new model that solves like 50% of super advanced software development tests, and you go on Reddit, people start complaining like, why 50%, why not 95, right? So this really amused me, I guess.
Thank you. Alicia?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a sector, we've been doing a lot of piloting, and I think what I'm excited for is scale. I think really bringing some of the proven technologies to bear on some of these fundamental humanitarian problems that people are experiencing every day across the world is going to be a really exciting game changer for sort of how we design and create impact in those spaces.
I'm excited, not about technology itself. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about the cultural shift I see in the industry. And the shift is about more and more people really being excited about building things for good. I see that every single day. Tech companies join Tech to the Rescue every single day. And honestly, like I'm putting my pinky finger on the bet that in 10 years from now, most of the companies out there will be doing pro bono projects as a cultural norm, and everyone will benefit from it.
Like the legal sector is doing now.
Exactly.
All right. Any ending comments, any call to action? Alicia, you have already said. What's your call to action? To everyone watching us and everyone here in the room, thank you for coming again. Any call to action from you?
Go build.
Now go build. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be sticking around here. If you have any questions, come and talk to us and ask us any questions. Thank you so much for everything you do, all three of you. And we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.